This is Living Power with Dan Hurst.
And then the fourth thing is that he provides his presence. He provides his presence. He knows our need for compassion. We are a people who need compassion. Now, compassion is something that comes naturally. Have you ever met a compassionate baby? We are not born with compassion. Compassion is something that you learn, and the way you learn it is you learn it out of need. You learn it because there was something that happened in your life that you needed somebody to touch your life for. And you learn what a difference it made in your life, and you know then what a difference it makes in somebody else's life. And you become more and more compassionate. The most compassionate people in the world that I know are the people who have struggled in life. They're the people who understand the pain and the suffering and the hurt. And they know what that's like, and they become so compassionate. In Hebrew, in the Hebrew of the Old Testament and the Greek of the New Testament, the word for compassion generally means tender sensitivity. That's the best way to define it. Compassion is tender sensitivity. Now, there's one word that's also used, particularly in the Old Testament. It's used for compassion that indicates mercy. But in any case, it's always considered a characteristic of God. And the idea is that God is tender towards his children and sensitive to their needs. That's the idea. When God says that he's compassionate, it means that he's tender toward his children and sensitive to your needs. Just as a mother is with a baby. She's tender and sensitive to that baby's needs. Psalm 139 gives us some good examples of how God is compassionate towards us. I love Psalm 139. It's kind of the psalm of my life. I depend on it. I find myself often going back to it and reading it and just quoting passages of that psalm because it's the focus of my life. I've realized that I need a God who knows me and cares for me in spite of my past, in spite of my circumstances, in spite of what the reality is in my life. And there are some ways that God reveals his compassion towards us. In fact, let me give you three. They're mentioned in Psalm 139. The first one is he gives us compassion by providing protection and leadership. It's Psalm 139:5. You hem me in behind and before. In other words, I think another translation says you go before me and behind me. You hem me in before and behind, and you have laid your hand on me. And the idea, it's a beautiful word picture. It's like here you are, and God's in front of you, and God's behind you, and he has his hands on you. He's protecting you. Now, why would God put his hands on you? He puts his hands on you to guide you. He puts his hands on you to guide you. And when you know that God's hands are on you, then you are so much more confident. Ever teach a child how to ride a bike? You can be running along, and for a fat guy, that's a real problem. Running along, holding the bike, and you have your hand on them, and they're doing fine. They got the bike, they're still a little nervous. But the minute you can be holding onto the seat, but if you take your hand off of their shoulder, they get all panic-ridden. Don't let me go! Don't let me go! You can be in control. You can still have them, but if they think that you've let go, they panic. That's the way we are with God. Sometimes we think if God's taken his hand off of us and we panic. God says, no. I've hemmed you in. I'm in front of you and behind you, and I have my hands on you.
On behalf of Dan Hurst and the Open Class, we want to thank you for watching. We hope it was a blessing.